All right, welcome everyone to the April 2022 edition of our Boise ITSM Talks meeting. Great to have all of you with us here today. I'm your facilitator, Jeff Jensen. Want to always start off by saying our thank yous and the appreciation we have for all of you being here. Appreciate all of you taking time out of your days to attend. Very special thank you to Rae Ann, who we'll introduce here in just a minute, for being our presenter today. And we'll have some time, as I mentioned, for some introductions after the presentation. Especially want to say hi to our first timers and have them have a chance to introduce themselves. Maybe we can even do that as a part of doing some of the Q&A that we want to do today. We always start off our meetings with our vision, which is to deliver actionable information from our presentation. I guarantee that our presentation today from Rae Ann will have lots of awesome takeaways and encourage attendee participation. Part of what I'd really like to get back to doing more with these meetings is to take what you've learned from our presenters and then have some time for anyone to share. Maybe they were able to try something new in their organization or share something that helped their organization drive some improvement. We want to make sure we have time to do those things as we go forward. And of course, we start with why we really like that model in Boise ITSM, and taking a look at some of those golden circle principles from Simon Sinek. Our why is to inspire all of you to become better IT leaders and to continue to fill the voids in our organization and in our communities. We really do see a need for more and more opportunities to collaborate. We have some awesome ITSM conferences that HDI is putting on as we go through this year. We'll talk about those a little bit here at the end as well. Today's presentation is from Rae Ann Bruno. Rae Ann Bruno is the founder and owner of Business Solutions Training. And I was talking to Rae Ann right before we started up and some of you joined. I just celebrated the 5-year anniversary of starting up iTrain IT Leaders, and I feel like that's a really nice accomplishment. Rae Ann has been running her company for 19 and a half and will be 20 years old at the first of the year in 2023, if I read correctly. And Rae Ann's awesome. She's been a thought leader throughout the ITSM community. She's recognized as a top 25 expert by HDI. She's very well versed in continual improvement as well as all things related to service management, and now is really branching out and really honing in on a lot of the experience aspects when we take a look at customer and employee experience. And I'm really excited to have Rae Ann here. I think the world of her, and I really do appreciate her taking time out of her schedule to be our presenter for this month. So with that, Rae Ann, I'll hand the floor over to you and give you a chance to do a further introduction of yourself and share your slides.
All right, thank you. And right now it's disabled, so if you can give me the ability to do that, that would be great.
Absolutely.
So, and hi, I see a lot of familiar faces and names, so thank you for being here and thanks for having me back. It's my honor, and I really appreciate that, Jeff, because I think the world of you and this group. I really enjoy being here with all of you. And I'm actually going to share something today that I did a slightly different version of it at conference. But what was interesting, I've been speaking at conference for many, many years, and I feel like at the moment, oh, wow, people like that, or people will tell me at conference that they like it or something to that effect. But this one like resonated so much with people, and they came up to me afterwards. But actually, when I was training classes for months after, people will come in and say, well, you know how you talked about the third door? And like, it really struck people. And I can't take credit for the whole idea of the third door. I'll explain where it came from momentarily, but it's really real. And what I like about it is it definitely took me to a new place, and I'll tell you why, a few reasons as we go through, but also I think that when we recognize it, we might look at it a lot differently. So let's look at our traditional definition, especially in ITIL 4, of continual service improvement. And I know you all can tell me these keywords. I don't really need to point them out to you, but I just want to remind us again that we're trying to align what we're doing, and it's everything involved with what we're doing, right? Everything that we do, whether it's how we train our people, how we hire them, and we're trying to align it with the changing business needs. I think that's a big piece to remember as well. They're going to change. So putting it in place once doesn't mean that it's where it needs to be forever. And I think we all know that. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it also talks about, improving everything. And it's identifying these so that we can effectively manage our products and services. So let's talk about that for a moment. What are some things that you do to actually improve services today? And you can put it in chat, you can raise your hand and speak right out loud, but let's just talk about, you've all been doing this for a long time. What are things that you do when you want to identify improvements? Listen to the customers. Nice way to start it off. And thanks for the comments there. Trends, look at trends. This is exactly what I was going for. Trends, gaps, metrics. Okay, good. What else? Keith Sutherland, I can't believe you haven't given me an answer yet. What's up with that? Observe directly. Oh, Angela, thank you for that one. You kind of stole a little bit of my thunder on that one, but ask why. That's a great one. And then look for waste. That's good, Jeff. Of course, I expected it from you too. Look for waste, things that don't need to be done anymore. Good, Mark. Look for pain points, analyze problems. What value does it add? Good question. And look what we're doing great. I like that you put that in there. There's appreciative inquiry too, right? And of course, Judy, align with strategy and understand where we are. All right, excellent. Thank you. This is a great list. I'm actually going to pause on this thought now, and I'll come back to it. And I want to introduce you to this idea of the third door. And I said it wasn't my idea, and it was not. We had a keynote speaker that after I listened to him, I totally went back and changed my presentation. I'm horrible for that. I know people who have me in conferences probably don't love that about me, but I think it ended up to be much better than I had it planned prior to that. But Alex's story is about his journey on where he wanted to go in life. And he was doing all the right things to try to get there, but just hit all of these roadblocks. So his point, he used this analogy. He said, if you're standing in a nightclub and you're waiting to get in through the main entrance, the main door, it's usually a pretty long line, and it's usually not always that fun. It could be cold and you're just like looking to see, am I going to get in? And sometimes, at least pre-COVID, I think this is a pre-COVID picture for sure, but it was a matter of waiting maybe for somebody to come out before you could actually go in. It was a whole volume or capacity thing, which probably it is even more so though now, right? But then there's this like little short line that just keeps cycling through. People get in, they go, they get in line, they go in, they get in line, they go in. The VIP door. But I can't go to that VIP line because I don't have the credentials to be in that VIP line, right? But he said, I'm telling you, based on my experience, there is always a third door. It might be down an alley through a window, but there is a third door. There is another way to make this happen. And as he was sharing this in his keynote, I was laughing a little bit on the inside because I had to actually admit, my job is either to train people or to consult with people to help them to do all those things we just put on that last slide, right? To improve processes, to help people to, let's change the behaviors of people so that they follow our processes or they adopt our self-help, or all these things to make it work well, to be effective and efficient so that people are happy, right? Well, I had to admit something because of something I was experiencing while I was there. I am one of the worst people when it comes to finding the third door. What I do for a living just doesn't matter if there's something that I want, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to find that third door. So I want to share the story of what I experienced. First of all, I found out very quickly that I'm way out of practice for traveling and training in person. I've been doing it virtually all the way through COVID, and last year's conference was my first in-person training in over 2 years. So I just was very out of practice. Usually I have everything. I showed up without my markers, my Post-its, everything, and without my power cord. I was on my way to the airport, too far to turn around, realized, oh my gosh, I forgot my power cord. I was going to be training a class for 3 days. I was going to be at conference the whole week. I was speaking. I needed to have that power cord. So I tried at both airports to go buy one. And of course, they didn't sell what I needed to have. And so that night, like as soon as I got there, I was meeting some people to eat. And I saw all these other people I knew like at the bar. I'm like, hey, you guys, does anybody have a power cord for a Lenovo? And they're like, well, which one is it? And yeah, I might have it. And so I'm just like on a mission, right, to find it. Well, they told me that, I said, I'm going to order it on Amazon, but I'm just worried about my next 2 days of training, depending on when it's going to come. And they said, well, you can actually go pick it up somewhere. I said, no car. You can do this Amazon locker, all this stuff. So anyway, I landed with ordering it from Amazon. It was going to arrive on Monday. This was, I think it was Friday night. It might've been Saturday. I think it was 2 days. So I think my first day of training was Saturday. I'm mixing up my time, but in any case, I didn't have a power cord. So I received what you're seeing over here on the right. I received a message and it was on my phone, and notice what it says, because I put special instructions. I put, I'm here at this hotel, I'm a guest. I think I even put my room number, but it doesn't show it there. But anyway, notice delivered November 8th. It was handed directly to a receptionist or someone at the front desk. So I went up to the front desk and I showed Andrew my phone and I said, hey, my power cord was delivered. May I get it? And Andrew's like, and he's looking and he's asking everybody else at the front desk and can't find my power cord. I said, hey, listen, I've got to go to the other side, but I'll come back. Right. And he said, okay, well, no, actually, I'm sorry. I stopped by prior to me getting that message. And he said, no, it's not here. He said, you come back once you get the message. And that's when I came here and showed him this. So he called the shipping department, couldn't reach them. So I said I'd come back because I had to go on the other side. Well, then when I got back, those of you who know me, I don't always take a direct route back, and I stopped and talked to a whole lot of people. So by the time I did get back to the side where my room was, I kind of forgot that I needed to go to the front desk. So I went ahead and I dialed 0, told them the story of my cord, asked if it was there, and they said, I think they told me no. So I went back in person at the front desk. Andrew wasn't there anymore. Asked everybody, right? And all these people, nobody saw my cord. And I kept showing the phone, but look, it was delivered. It was handed to somebody right here at the front desk. Like you weren't going to tell me anything different, because that's what my message said, right? So I was on a mission. Well, then I found Lanaja, and Lanaja must have my personality because she's like, oh my gosh, she was like looking at all these places. She goes, I am so sorry, Mrs. Bruno, I am not finding this, but I am not giving up. I will find your power cord. It said it was delivered to us. I'm going to find it. By this time, the shipping office isn't even open, so we can't check to see if it's there. And so she took my text, my phone number, and she said she would call me if by any chance she found it. And now she was looking for a way to bypass the process, the same as I did, right? So long story short, I guess it's not really making it's short, it's a long story. But she did call me and she said, I found it. And here, well, first of all, ironically, there were 3 doors behind them at the reception desk. And she went through each of those doors and she had looked. Well, then when she called me, she said, I'm not that tall. And here it was on this top shelf and it wasn't where you could see it. She said, I've been on everything. I've been climbing up on everything. She said, I found it. It was on the top shelf where somebody my height can't actually reach it. So she found it because she was driven, right? So I absolutely knocked down other doors to find the 3rd door. I was intrusive. I was pushy, let's just say it. I wasn't going to stop because I needed to have my power cord and I knew it was there. And the impact of that 3rd door behavior, it wasn't just an impact on me, it was an impact on everybody, right? I was impacting the employees that worked there, was taking them away from their key focus areas and what they did every day. They might have felt a little frustrated that they had no idea what I was talking about. Why did that even say it? Was it even accurate? And if they handed it to somebody, why didn't somebody tell them, right? And if it went to the shipping office, why doesn't anybody know where it is? So maybe they were frustrated. Maybe I was taking them away from what they needed to do, more pressing work that they couldn't get done. And so I was like kind of driving a wedge or barriers in between those silos, right? And so the 3rd door behavior doesn't just impact the only person I talk to, or me being a recipient of not being able to go through that main entrance, or the main entrance not leading me where I wanted to go or quickly enough. But I think it's really important to recognize that third door behavior does give us insight into customer wants and needs, and maybe a lot of what you put on that slide. You know, what are we doing well? What are we missing? You know, and all of our numbers might not show us that. And that's what we're going to break down. First of all, what insight do you get from my third door behavior? What were my needs, my wants as a customer?
Well, you wanted a power supply.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted my product or result of my service, right? Absolutely. So maybe we should say wanted what I expect to get. Is that fair? In a way? Okay. What else?
I think you wanted your concern to be mirrored by those that you were engaging with.
Yeah, I wanted them to care, right? But how did you say it, mirrored by those
that you were engaging with, that you were asking?
Okay, good. Good. What else? Understand where we are. Oh, wait, that was to be a process. Yeah. Wanted a process to be followed. I think that is true. When things were delivered, because I had my proof, right? I trust in the message. And critical urgency. It was becoming critical for me, wasn't it? Because the person that was loaning it to me had to get theirs back. Yeah, so it affected me.
I don't know if you wanted
job.
this, but a name would have been nice. Like I handed it to so-and-so, like maybe additional
Thank
details.
you. Yes, I absolutely wanted that. I was like, I wish they would have put a name in there, because then I could have really said, okay, call this person, right? So I want to know who's involved. Absolutely. So a name. Okay, good. Anything else? Keith, why are you laughing like that? Okay, so that's not about, you could just see me being this bulldozer. Because I was. And aren't people who bypass process, can't they be bulldozers, right? And when they're looking for their third door. So this is what a customer wants, right? First of all, my expectation was that when it was delivered, and I felt like I did my due diligence by going to Andrew in the morning saying, hey, this is going to be delivered. Could you let me know, or just hold on to it, you know, whatever. And I was oblivious to the process, right? And I don't even know, you know, Donna said, I wanted a process to work. I don't even know if anybody knew the process. Like, he did call the shipping office, but was that the process, or is that him thinking, well, hey, if it's not here, it must be with shipping? So
Yeah,
we're
I
starting
don't
to
think
get,
that was the process.
you don't think that was the process? Why not?
No, because the delivery person said we delivered it to the front desk, the receptionist or someone at the desk. So if it was a normal order, it would have gone to shipping or receiving. That's what he's familiar with. So that's where he went to. But that wasn't what the direction said. So
Yeah, good point. And then very good point as well, Keith, that I shouldn't have to know the process, right? It should be really simple. It was delivered here. Where is it? And then they obviously don't have a process for where do you put something that gets delivered or even found, right? So we start to get insight. This third door is giving us insight to customer wants and needs. And then it's actually exposing potentially a need, maybe a need for improvement in a service, or maybe a need for anything. So let's just say this is your job, this group. Okay, it's your job to improve this process. What would be your approach?
well, if
Probably
we go
look
back
at
to
root
that,
cause.
Root cause. Okay, and then if we go back, go
if
ahead.
you go back to that like 2 slides that outlined what you'd need to do. So you would need to meet, directly observe, evaluate what is their process, or identify what the process is or lack thereof. And then
Okay.
develop a plan from there, I would imagine.
Okay, assess where we are. What worked, what didn't, what, right? Observe, assess, plan, determine ownership. Tell me some of the ways you would do this. How are you going to, you know, how are you going to assess, observe? I mean, it's behind me now. It already happened, right? Understand the outcome first. What do you think that
I
outcome
don't think you'll
was?
ever like leave your power cord again.
No, I won't. No, I will not. As a matter of fact, I was thinking today, because conference is coming up, man, I better get another power cord and I better put it in my bag and just have it there. I do the same thing for my Fitbit. I have a travel Fitbit charger because I forgot that one time as well. So you're right. You're right. And to that point, do you think anything changed with them, Angela? Do you think they changed any processes?
No.
No, they didn't. But that's the thing
Oh,
is like, as you look at these, so I know what we ask a lot of times, are we solving for the 80 or the 20%? Like,
there we
is
go.
this
First of all,
really,
is this
I
an
mean,
exception?
yeah, is this an exception? Is this really like the resources, the time, the effort? What are we looking at? So
Great. Good. We're going where I want to go here with all of this time. Okay, so let's start breaking that down and let's talk about how we can do it from the third door in, more or less. We do have to determine that. And let's just say that, and I have no idea, but let's just say that we find that quite often people have things delivered. And the only way anybody running that hotel is going to know, because a lot of this happened at night, right? The only, Andrew was during the day, Lanaja was at night. And so the only way anybody that's making decisions about processes or making decisions about where to utilize, or, where to put our resources, what to prioritize, they weren't part of that. And the only way they're going to find out is if they heard the story from somebody on their team, right? So we want to keep in mind, some of the things that make sense is that we all feel really comfortable with the front desk at a hotel. We feel like that's the place to go. If I have a question, if I lost something, even if it weren't written in there, that's where I would have gone. I don't know where the shipping office is. I don't even know how to reach them, right? I might not have even thought of a shipping office there at the hotel. I think the only time I've ever used one is when I had to ship something, right? And shipping's behind the scenes and it's not open 24/7, but the front desk is. It's open 24/7. It is accessible to me 24/7. So right to your point, Angela, is this an exception or a norm? So let's start learning that. What's the frequency of this? Is this someplace that we need to focus our efforts or not? And is there a way that we can keep all those front desk personnel focused on what they're there to do, focusing on the guests, and then maybe even prevent them from needing to handle packages at all? I mean, is that part of their job? Is it a useful use of their time? And if so, we're gonna
I
have to
would
look at the, go
almost
ahead.
question, like, as you go through this, like, how frequently do packages get delivered to the front desk? I would
Exactly.
almost say, how frequently do packages get delivered? Question mark. Maybe it's
Ah,
a process improvement on Amazon's part because they
nice.
lacked detail. Because the front desk, like you said, I don't know, I would challenge that.
Okay, so you might not qualify. And I love that you're saying that, because that means we've got to
Your
step back
metrics
and make
change a
sure
lot.
that we're not getting so narrow-minded. No, I am trying to change it. It's just that I have my annotate on. There we go. So get delivered.
No, that's what I'm saying is like your metrics change when you say how many packages get delivered or how many packages get delivered to this front desk. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just it's a different.
but it's definitely a drill down, right? First of all, how many packages are delivered to the hotel? What is the normal means of it being delivered? What types of packages? Are these hotel packages that we do something with, or are these what guests are ordering? So you're right. You've got to dissect it. We've got to understand it. We've got to see if the numbers are even worth it, or if this even matters to people. We need to even know what people care about, right? So is this something that's even important enough to place the time in? Maybe not. Maybe they're going to find that out pretty quickly. And what is the proper procedure today? Is it documented? Are people trained on it? Do they have any idea? Does it happen? How do we set appropriate expectations? Is there anything we can do to automate it or improve it? Communication would have been key there, right? Like when it was delivered to somebody at the front desk, something as simple as leaving me a message in my room. Hi, Mrs. Bruno. Just wanted to let you know that we got an Amazon delivery for you. My name is so-and-so. I took it. And if I'm not here when you're here, just ask for so-and-so. This is where it is. Something as simple as that could fix everything, right? But then we have to rely on everybody doing it. So let's just take it very quickly, and then I'll get into the actual improvement part to an IT example. Desktop support, they are the ones that are pushed into being reactive most often for shoulder taps, right? And when people want to bypass support processes, this is one of the key ways they do it. They know the person, they know where to find that person. Too often, and unfortunately, maybe they know their cell phone numbers, and they go to them for everything. Last minute new hire setups, maybe they're having a conference room issue and they need to have something, VIP support, other tiers reach out to them. Maybe even, when there's a project, they're the people for deployment, just everything, right? People, and this is how a lot of people feel. Well, my people don't want to follow the process. They don't want to follow the process. I think we have to go back to something somebody said a little earlier. Well, why? Why don't they want to follow the process? And again, when there are processes being bypassed, it affects everybody. A lot of times, and we see this all the time. For example, at my local grocery store, they just put up these really pretty little fences, like in between every aisle of cars is a little grass island. And now they have fences on all these islands and it looks really pretty, but they absolutely did not do that for aesthetics. They did it because people were walking over that, right? And so they did it to stop people from walking there. So they want to drive different behaviors. And I don't know, we'll see how people feel about it. We'll see if it probably doesn't have a big effect, but it was, okay, people aren't following the rules. People aren't following the process. They're not doing it the right way. So how can we force them to do it the right way? It's a lot of time, energy, effort on everybody. So let's go ahead and play and go forward again with these traditional improvement approaches, a lot of which we already shared and a lot that line up with what you see here. However, I think it's incredibly important. What we tend to do is we focus on changing the behavior so that it follows the plan, so that it follows the process, so that it follows the way we can be most efficient and effective. Yet these traditional approaches can't stand alone. Trust me, I'm a believer of all of this, right? I'm a believer of process, absolutely. But I'm also a believer of being able to set expectations realistically. And honestly, this turned on a big light in my head where I said, oh, I'm that person. I try to help people help others change their behaviors. However, what if we flip it? What if we step back and say, wow, the third door. What if we do what you said? What if we ask why? First of all, to Angela's point, absolutely. We've got to figure out if it is worth this effort. So as we're starting to hear the questions, the comments, the stories, can we start capturing those? Can we look to see if there's any kind of a pattern? Can we see if this is big enough? Now let's support it with data. And I want to share this because I found this fascinating. I had somebody in class from a university and she said they had these new buildings built and ended up making this huge quad area in between the buildings. And so then the university said to the people that had built all that, okay, now will you build the sidewalks? He says, yes, I'll be back in about 1.5 years to do that. And they said, what? And he said, it's not time to build the sidewalks. They said, well, we absolutely need to have sidewalks. Safety of people, da-da-da. He goes, hey, we don't know where we need to have the sidewalks yet. He said, trust me. In about 1.5 years, I'm going to know very clearly where we need to have sidewalks because people tell you what they need to have, don't they? Because the path of least resistance and lowest effort that they take is the path they want to follow. They find the way to get the results that they want. They find a way to get to where they want to go. And if we step back and say, okay, I want to understand this third door. I want to understand why you did that. Maybe it's as simple as they have a misconception that if I call the service desk, if we use the support example, that's going to take forever. Maybe it's a misconception, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's that we didn't build the sidewalks in the right places. Maybe it's that we're not facilitating them doing their jobs. Maybe we're not making it easy. Maybe we're not communicating. So let's see what we can learn from people on the third door. Any thoughts to that yet? Are you with me on it? Or does this just like violate everything we talk about in ITSM?
Not at all.
No? Okay.
Make it easy for people to do the right thing and they'll do the right thing.
Right. And do we get to dictate that right thing, right? And I think too, we've got to understand what that is because then we can step back. Does this make sense? Is it viable? Is it the right thing for the company? How much does it cost? How many resources does it take? right? So it can show us where we need to have improvement. And then we can embrace our natural tendencies, right? Because we want to fix things, we want to figure them out. So it goes back to what you said, let's observe, let's really try to understand this. Let's ask questions, let's learn. Like they should say to me, so what made you come to the front desk? Well, obviously it's this message here, but also I don't know where else to go. And then to Angela's point, is it a hotel issue or is it an Amazon issue? And maybe if there are enough Amazon deliveries, maybe we want an Amazon locker, right? Maybe that's a great idea. So instead of focusing on changing their behaviors to fit what we have created as the process, if we're really talking about continual improvement at the very beginning, by definition or purpose alone, it was saying changing business needs, changing expectations. People are finding a better way to do their jobs, maybe saving time, allowing to be more productive. So let's find out what we're learning from the third door. What are those unmet needs, or what are the needs that maybe we can help them? Maybe we can fix it. Maybe we can improve it. Let's not look at it as a negative and be frustrated over it. Let's answer that question, why? Let's focus on the experience itself and the results. Excuse me. So the path on that is, first of all, what's wrong with our main door, right? Let's try to understand that main door. People know about the main door. They know the right way. Anybody you ask who bypasses process will tell you, I know I'm supposed to. I know we're really supposed to. I know this is, they know. So let's have the conversation, but let's not let that conversation just evaporate or be somewhere in the back of our memory. So let's find out what they know first, but the bigger piece is, why are they rejecting it? They know it, they know fundamentally it works, but somehow it's not necessarily meeting the needs. And I recognize that there are some people that just push on everything, right? And that's not what we're looking for, not what we're looking for. The 80-20 rule that Angela talked about, we're not looking for the exceptions, we're looking for the norm. And we want to understand. So let's talk to them. You all said this, let's collect information, let's observe, but let's talk to the people bypassing the processes and not make it a negative thing at all. And just say, hey, I'm just curious. I wish we could have gotten this to you a lot sooner. So I just want to understand, what are some of the other steps that you took before you came to me? Or why did you feel like I would be able to do this for you more quickly than, those steps that you know about? Like, start to understand. And then let's look at our data. Does it really take that long if they follow the process? Why does it take that long? Is there a different way that we can work? And the stakeholders are everybody. It's not just the people needing to have the services, but it's the people delivering the services. If there's too much on their plates, if it's not easy for them to do, we see that all the time, right? They'll bypass processes as well. So let's really listen to those answers and those questions. And let's hear, they actually, the people doing the jobs, they get a front row seat. They hear the comments, but we don't typically make it a practice. Yeah, and I think that's a big one, Keith, right? Why isn't the process being followed? We usually say, why don't you follow the process, and how do we get you to follow the process? But it's really, why are they evading it? Why are they working around it? And our team probably has a gut feel for that, because they hear the comments all the time. And so what we need to do is we need to start to formalize that. Let's just at least share this in meetings. What were the things you heard this week? Or let's just capture it, just put it in anything, a SharePoint site or, documents, whatever. Let's just start noting it. Let's capturing it. Maybe in the case of the hotel and the guest portfolio, but it's got to really be someplace central, right? And like Angela says, well, if they are successful without the process, yeah. Yeah, so is the process in the way? Do we even need to have this? And actually, last time I was here, I was talking about experience. And I think all paths lead to experience. So sometimes, well, often what happens is when we start assessing how people feel and what they value, we find out we don't need to have all of those service levels. Let's streamline this, or let's streamline the process, right? So you're right, there are so many questions that we can ask, but let's catch it. Let's formalize capturing those comments, because those comments are important. And a lot of times in transactions, we don't capture sentiment or comments. And let's learn then with our data, is this the exception, or is this the norm? And when we can really understand it, then maybe we can find our way to simplify it. And I know some of you are saying, oh, This sounds like the 7 guiding principles, and I'm going to bring them up, of course, because they make sense. They're practical. So these are just some general questions, but there are so many more. And I think we learn as we go. We learn more questions to ask. You know, how is it working today? How would you like it to work? What do you expect in this situation? What is it impacting negatively? You know, how can we save you time? How can we make it easier? What's working efficiently? If I could change one thing, the thing that's most important to you, what would that be? And this has to be comprehensive enough. First of all, it has to be happening frequently enough that it warrants the attention and the time and the resources. If we can support it with data, it's probably a place to look. Then we can actually do something like the Pareto, right? We could do a Pareto analysis. That's the 80-20 rule. What's the highest frequency complaint or or that we get, or what's the process most people are bypassing? Let's start to get around that and or get under it and truly understand it. So what are some ways? What do you know of ways that you can quantify this information? Maybe you're doing it today. Where are you capturing customer feedback?
Well, I mean, a lot of systems have customer service surveys like built in, like ZenWorks or ServiceNow or whatever. So that's one way you're going to capture the information. The other would be to like literally ask people or have focus groups and try and actually, like, you know, if you're trying to improve a specific thing, go solicit feedback from the customers, because we all know that nobody actually answers the surveys that we send out.
Right, or they're the wrong questions, right? We're not asking the questions that are
Exactly.
going to help us really understand how they feel about it. No, those are all great, Michael. And yes, these are our traditional ways of doing it, right? We do voice of the customer. We do our reports, our data, our metrics. Let's do some interviews, maybe even, and I use support as an example, but I'm not limiting this to support. This is anything. You know, this is even maybe that we assign some project work to some outside groups that aren't part of our project team, but it doesn't get done. Why not? You know, it's anything. And it is starting to understand or just hear, you know, it should give us an indication that we should probably look at this, or let's see if we should look at this. Is this something that's repeated? And I won't go into the details of the experience, but I had an experience with a very mature organization where people are incredibly well trained. They know their processes. It took me 6 calls on a physical visit to a store to finally get what I needed to have. But I will tell you that every single customer satisfaction survey that I filled out, it looked like I was happy, because I was happy with each of those transactions. They did, you know, based on the questions they asked, they did a standout job. But I bet there's nothing that strings the 6 interactions together. Nothing that shows that 6 times I made 6 efforts to try to get to this, but there were just a series of events that happened that I had to fix all these other things to get to where I was ultimately going. And there's no visibility to that right now. The only way they could have visibility to it is to listen to the phone call and hear what I say, or for them to say, hey, this customer really had to go through a lot to make this happen. But when we're in our silos, we all have our success metrics, right? We all have our success factors. And if we're not making it a practice to start to understand if there's any merit to what people are saying, then we're not going to get to that point of improvement. So let it first be the thought, okay, is this happening more than once? Is it the exception or the rule? And I really love this. I don't know if you've ever seen the results pyramid from the Oz principle, or there's a book called The Wisdom of Oz. But what they talk about are that people's beliefs drive their actions, which give you their results, right? And we try to focus on their actions and on their behaviors, and we try to change it. However, the reason they're behaving the way they're behaving is really because of what they believe, and they believe what they believe because of their experiences. So if we want to change their beliefs and the ultimate results, we've got to change their experiences. So we need to understand what those experiences are and what those expectations are. So when we understand that, when we get it from their perspective, now we can start to identify, if we change these experiences, first of all, should we, right? We talked about all the ways we can find that out. Then it will change their beliefs, and we should get different results ultimately. So it doesn't always mean a major overhaul. Like I said, maybe just a matter of letting me know that my package was delivered when it was delivered, where I could find it when I needed to have it. It would have saved so many people a whole lot of time, and it would have saved me a lot of effort as well, and stress. So small improvements add up. Something as simple as that adds up. And then maybe later they will find that there are a lot of packages delivered and maybe there's a better way of doing this. Maybe even we can partner with our vendor, Amazon, and maybe Amazon instead can just give me a locker number and a code, and I never have to go to the front desk for it. That's not only good for me, it's good for the front desk, right? Because they can focus on what they need to focus on. Because that an employee's experience, a customer's experience, anybody's experience isn't limited to transactions or one transaction. We call that moments over time. It's an accumulation. Like if every time I go to that hotel, something goes wrong, I probably won't go back to that hotel. If every time I call support, it takes me forever to get what I need to have, I'm not going to call them anymore. If every time there's a new project that IT puts out, everything else breaks, I'm not going to feel like they're very helpful, right? So we need to understand what those expectations are and focus on those results and make it easier. I think Donna said that, you know, and Keith said, I shouldn't have to know the process behind the scenes. I should just be able to get, you know, what I need to have as a customer. So let's avoid starting with the solution. And let me give you an example, a real world story. And it actually happened at conference. And somebody came in and was really upset. It was somebody in the director class. And she said, I'm really just so upset right now. I'm sorry, but I have to go have this meeting because this so-and-so executive, she said, I have been spending the last 2 years. She says, we have really been building up the relationship between our first tier and our escalation teams. And she said, you know, through COVID, we've set up these chat channels. And she goes, and now we're back, you know, on site. And she said, and we're sitting near each other and there's so much collaboration and my team's learning so much and they're getting so much better. Our first contact resolution is going up. Everything is just great. And we aren't escalating as many things unnecessarily. And they're just gaining so much being right there by second tier. So I'm really upset because now my executive said they want them out in a more public area. They want to put them under a stairwell in the hallway. They want to set up a desk out there. They're going to, I haven't even had a conversation with them yet. Their morale is going to be so low over this. After all this progress, now they want to put them out there because he just wants them to be more accessible, as if they're not doing a good job today. That's how she took it. She went to her meeting and a group of directors, because let's do what we do best, right? Started to brainstorm on this. And they said, you know, actually, what if we use this as an opportunity to promote the value of the desk? I mean, I think they can do a lot of stuff. So first of all, she's worried about them having to wear masks for COVID, and she's worried about the sound. Well, you know what? We had put up this big banner in this area and it started to take away the vibration of sound. So I think if they did something on the floor and they did this, that it would absorb the sound and wouldn't be really loud. And she wants them still sitting with second tier. And he never said that this was about freeing up that space and getting them out of that location. He said what he wants is for them to be more accessible to their customers. That's what he said. He didn't say, and he did give a solution, right? He did start with the solution and she took it really negatively. But now this team came up with, oh my gosh, it could be really cool. It could be this walk-up desk and they could rotate people, right? So you're sitting next to second tier for the first 2 hours of the day, and now you get your rotation out there in the hallway, and we just rotate. So now, wow, look at this, you know, and hey, let's market this. Let's make this really cool banner and hang it up, and it'll absorb the sound. Let's make it cool. Let's make it like the cool place to go. Let's make it like the Genius Bar. And when she came back, they shared the story with her, and you should have seen this look of just total mortification and like almost like she felt betrayed and she felt looked down on, and she just was sure her team was going to be so upset. She got the biggest smile on her face and she just looked at them. She goes, I think this could work. Yeah, such a difference between what's said. Yeah, absolutely. And with somebody trying to tell you how to solve it, right? He went to the point of saying, I want them to be more accessible and I want them to be in the hallway. He gave the solution as well, right? And the solution is what aggravated her. Maybe if he had turned it around and said, hey, I was thinking, you know, like we have so much traffic in the hallway at these times of day, and people aren't necessarily utilizing all of our services. How can we get it out there for them? How can we make it something that's really convenient for them? right? I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff from this, but it didn't feel that way. How am I on time, Jeff? I'm about there. 4 minutes? Okay. All right, so it does go back to the 7 guiding principles. Start where you are, move forward iteratively with feedback, collaborate, promote visibility, keep it simple, optimize and automate where we can, right? So there are all these different things that we can do to improve it. And I wasn't going to play the video. I feel like a lot of you have seen this, but I encourage you, and I will put this link in chat. I encourage you to watch this if you haven't. It's meals per hour, and it's actually thanks to Itsm Academy that I even know about it. Rose shared this in a class, but it is an awesome video. Everybody that I play it for, they just love it. But it's about keep it simple. It's about observing how they're working today, and it's about helping them with their overall mission. I just encourage you to watch it. I'm showing you some results here, but I love it. I've not gotten tired of watching that video yet, but it was a matter of observing what they were doing today. And they started out with something so simple that I feel like I might not have ever thought of, because sometimes we are in this box, right, of where we're supposed to be. And literally their box had this much air in it. And when that was one of the first things they changed, they said, why do we need to have a box that size? Why don't we change the size of the box? Now we can fit more boxes in the truck. Because one of the things the guy says is, it breaks my heart when we're done. They were in essence giving out food to people in need during Hurricane Sandy. He said, it breaks my heart. You don't know what to do when I have 1 box left and 4 families. What do I do? And so they solved that problem in a lot of ways that we talked about. They looked at the experience and they stepped back and they found better ways of doing what they are doing. So they look at the end to end and they go back to the why. What's our mission? Aligning it, like you said, with the business. Is it even important? And gain perspective. You know, it's too often we start tweaking numbers. We start tweaking transactions. We start doing what we're already doing a little better, a little more efficiently, a little more effectively. But somebody else said it too. You know, what is that value? Value is in the eyes of the beholder, right? They define it, they assess it. And then when we make it our practice, when we don't take bypassing processes natively, when we embrace it as the third door, it will help us improve the main entrance. So we need to recognize that a continued use of the third door is a sign that improvement is needed. And we'll figure out how to prioritize it, but we can't create value or deliver value or improve things in an IT vacuum, right? We have to have this holistic approach. We need to do all these things you said: listen, act, adjust, get the feedback, communicate. So huge. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And focusing on the continual improvement is ongoing. We're never going to be done, right? So let's go for it. Let's go find that third door and let's find out the why. Let's eliminate their need to find the third door. And let's make our main entrance the path of least resistance, the better experience, the one where we focus our improvement efforts. So I made it, right? With my 4 minutes. All right. So I didn't give you any time to interact too much, but
No,
questions, thoughts?
as long as you're willing to stick around a little bit later, and we're happy to
Absolutely.
have people stay. I know some people have to go and have hard stops, but I definitely wanted to see if we could get a chance to ask a few questions for people that do have to leave real quickly. And by the way, awesome presentation, Rae Ann. The idea of flipping your paradigm to looking at this as not a negative thing, right? But really a positive thing and an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to even not just drive improvement, but maybe even to just test hypotheses and experiment and learn from that, I think is really good. So I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hearing what other people's feedback and questions are. Real quick, I'm going to take over sharing and just make sure I get a chance to toss out a few announcements to everyone before we have to drop. So next meeting, I want to put this out there because we're kind of working on a little bit of a somewhat shorter schedule for next month due to some classes and some training going on. Tuesday, May 10th, Donna Knapp will be our presenter, and she is presenting on accelerating ITSM for the digital operating model. Donna, do you real quick want to come off mute and maybe share a couple of thoughts on your presentation that's coming up?
Yeah, so I think we're hearing a lot about operating models lately. I talked to a Forrester analyst recently, and he said probably the most frequent inquiry that they're getting from their customers is, what should their operating model look like as they undergo digital transformation and part of my philosophy in life is the way I learn more about things is by speaking about them. So operating models is something that I'm on a personal journey to understand and to understand what our new operating model should look like. And so I'm going to kind of share with you what I've learned, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the folks who participate what they've learned as well.
All right, fantastic. Appreciate it, Don, and really looking forward to our presentation for our May meeting. As you've noticed, I'm recording this meeting. Our previous recordings are out here on my little fledgling YouTube channel. The link for that is there. Also try and cross promote some of our other local community activities like our Treasure Valley Agile community, our Project Management Institute Western Idaho chapter meetings. Those links are there. The Keep the Learning On blog and YouTube channel, where we've had some previous speakers like Greg Sanker and upcoming Rae Atkinson. Those videos are out there still. Feel free to connect to us on Meetup and our Boise ITSM LinkedIn group. I always try and promote some of the ITSM Academy public classes that are coming up. Take a look at those. I will be involved in teaching 3 of those. Those are in bold. So I'm excited to be doing VSM, Drive Stakeholder Value, and then Digital and IT Strategy in June. So check those out at itsmacademy.com. And if you're interested in any of the classes I'm teaching specifically, let me know and I'd be happy to share some more information. And then I thought I'd put this out. Go ahead,
Hey,
Donna.
Jeff, can I comment?
Please.
Well, I know you're not teaching it, but one of the classes that's not mentioned there is the Managing Professional Transition class. That's the same week as your CPD class. That's the last Managing Professional Transition. So if anybody's an IDLE expert and you haven't transitioned yet, your time is running out. That expires on June 30th. So the clock is ticking, and like, this isn't like a sales pitch or anything. This is like real. This is your only chance, and then it's going to expire. So
Yeah, I forgot to
June
put that on
6th
here, Donna. So thank you.
through 10 is Managing Professional Transition.
Yep, that's very worth bringing up. I appreciate it.
And people have to take their exams by June 30th.
Okay.
So
Down to the wire.
exactly. I just got a LinkedIn chat from somebody like today, like, hey, how do I transition? I was like, yeah, you're running out of time, sister. You get in this class. But thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you for remembering that. I should have remembered to put that on here. I didn't double check on see that one. But that is being announced out on LinkedIn. And then real quick, and I know, Donna, you've got a presentation coming up at HDI Support World Live. I know several people on this line are going to be going for that. And I'll definitely give you a second to share yours too. And we'll post that in next month's slides. But Rae Ann's going to be presenting in multiple sessions at the conference. I didn't even get room to put all of them on here because the writing would have been way too small and unreadable. But I wanted to try and grab the main ones. Rae Ann, do you want to talk real quickly about any of these? And I definitely encourage, if you like what Rae Ann presented today, which I'm sure all of you did, definitely if you're at HDI Support World, go check out her sessions.
So shame on me because, you know, I kind of stay focused on things until I need to do them. So my whole idea behind going beyond the numbers is really just to do a lot of what I talked about here today as well, but just taking the approach of tuning in, listening, and not necessarily driving improvement, but the improvement of the experience as a whole. So it'll be more experience focused with still practical examples as much as I can. The hybrid workplace I'm really excited about. I've got quite a few people on panelists that are working in companies that are putting things in place. Like Gina Montague, they have tenets for when you're in the office versus when you're working remotely, and just how do we work and collaborate and still move forward. And Weston Morris with Unisys. So I've got some people, I've got Alan Nance there as a visionary, of course, and then people who are working in organizations that are working in hybrid workplaces. So just tuning in, asking them some questions is totally a panel. And then I'm on a panel that Roy Atkinson is running that I think will be fun too. And it's just to optimize before you automate, which I think is great advice. So thank you, Jeff.
Yep, absolutely. All right, again, I know a few people are having to drop, and so I want to make sure we leave some time for Q&A, especially for folks that maybe do need to jump away. So I'm going to
Jeff, if I could add one thing
ahead.
too, we are doing the foundations class for at the HDI conference for the XLA foundations. And I know some of you have done EOE previously, but we're holding the class where we take it to the next level, really understanding the experience journey. So that is one thing that if you're interested in, it's happening for the first time live in Las Vegas pre-con.
All right,
Go ahead.
awesome.
questions?
Yeah,
comments?
I'd open it up. I see some comments. A couple of people have had to drop, but I'll open it up for the group. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, and let's see if you have any feedback or any questions for Rae Ann.
I have a comment and a question.
Okay.
So one of the things I've recommended for years is to add a simple free-form text field to one of the form, and this is in the context of service desk, to one of the forms in your system, so that if a customer does give feedback, makes a, hey, it would be nice if kind of comment, you have a really simple free-form field that you can throw that comment into. And then to your point, Rae Ann, it gets directed to wherever your backlog is for keeping track of that stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree
And
with you.
one of the things, I've gotten pushback on this idea several times. And one of the reasons was always because it's free-form text. And so it's not going to go into a nice, tidy little field where we can create a nice, tidy little chart and have it be, scrubbed data.
Well, I think it's important for everybody to recognize that we live in a whole different world these days, and there are lots of whiz bang tools out there. And actually, Nate Brown, not sure if you're familiar with him, he'll definitely be at conference. But years ago, he bought the CX Magic button for everybody at the call center and just stuck it into the USB port. And when they clicked on it, it brought up something in their CRM tool, just a page where they would capture comments, and then they did some text analytics to look for patterns. And then when they found the patterns, they went and looked for the data. So pretty much what we talked about. And it's truly, I mean, the comments are more important than the numbers, right?
Right.
So you are so right. And I just think it's one of those things. Let's just try it. Start where we are. Let's move forward iteratively with feedback. And then let's look for those text analytic tools that they are out there. He said it wasn't expensive, and I don't remember exactly what he used, but that capability, and if anybody knows of any, and thanks for the comments in chat, if anybody knows of some text analytic tools, I mean, print it, put it out there in chat, because Donna, I'm full on with you on that one. It's the only way they're going to capture it. And the service desk should put it in there too. Like if they hear somebody say something, or any of us are in a meeting, we should also click there and add comments. And it doesn't matter who it was, it just matters what was said.
Right.
So I love that.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, and Keith, I knew you were on board. Looks like a lot of people have to drop. So, okay, sounds good, Cody. Thank you.
Yeah, I know we still have a few folks here left that work in support. And in particular, any feedback on the presentation, any takeaways that you found especially useful, or any questions that anyone has here in our last few minutes?
Or even something about what Donna just said, like, how do you feel about capturing those comments?
Hey, Ryan. I will say that I absolutely, Donna, in the part of the Idle 4 Foundations where we're talking about the service desk and the concept of what's an example of an SR, or the concept of omni-channel. I mean, I talk about, if somebody calls and says IT sucks, where are you going to record that? If somebody calls and says IT, I love you, where are you going to record that? That is information that ought to be trapped
Absolutely.
somewhere. While I have the floor, I'm just going to suggest to the Jeffs and the Donnas and the Judy Sankers and the Rae Anns that are gone, I think I came up with an idea from this presentation that I've never done before. When I start to talk about the practices, and Rae Ann, you planted this, I would like to ask people up front, because process is fought so many times in so many different ways. I would actually like to ask people, what happens if you don't follow it?
I love it. And what happens on all sides?
Before I start talking about them, what happens if you don't follow them? Because from there you can go now, because maybe you don't follow it because it's too bureaucratic. So now it becomes, what can we do to make it
less bureaucratic?
And it was funny, you guys may not have known it, but eventually I actually asked Rae Ann, in that example that she presented, and I know I would have, and obviously Rae Ann, you did. Can I go back here and look for it for myself?
I really wanted to.
The doggone thing was back there somewhere. But what it also reminds me of is this concept of the consumer provider model.
Yep.
Where both sides do have some level of responsibility, and how do we make it better for both sides? And what I wrote down was, how do you wow? As you talk about moments over time, I mean, they would have wowed you, Rae Ann, if you would have, if that power cord would have showed up, somebody knocking on your room,
Yeah,
knocking on the door, left
I
a
would
note
have
on
been
your door
wowed.
saying we got it. I mean, it was so easy to wow you there, but apparently the opportunity didn't happen, or it wasn't taken.
Yep. Yeah, and see, sometimes it is so simple.
Well,
Great idea. I love it.
I think, and a lot of y'all know me, so you know this is a common rant of mine. I think part of the problem is that managers and executives in organizations get to go through the VIP door.
Yeah,
And they don't have a
exactly.
clue what the main door feels like.
Yeah.
That is so true.
And they don't even know the third door. Like, they don't have to worry about the third door because they get to go through the VIP door. And so I think, I think it really has to start there, with leadership in organizations starting to understand the ramifications of the policies that they put in place and the processes that they sanction. And, how often do our processes become bureaucratic because somebody makes a mistake? And rather than coaching and counseling them on how not to make that mistake again in the future, we put in place a blanket policy that now going forth, everybody has to do some extra step, right, in order to prevent that mistake from being made again. So
Yeah.
Undercover boss.
Leadership.
Great
Okay.
point. Well, I've never
Robert.
been a fan of VIP. Yeah, Robert Akey had a question for just that reason. I've never been a fan of VIP. I think everybody should have the same experience, good or bad. Go ahead, Robert.
Hey, Rae, I thought it was a great presentation.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I don't think you bring up on it is that a lot of it's culture too, right? I mean, IT has always been, we make the rules, you follow the rules, right? The whole concept of talking to our customers and saying, well, what do you think, right, is foreign to a lot of people, right? So I think there's a huge piece of organizational change involved in that as well, right? And to Donna's point, about being able to capture, right, what people are saying. We in IT a lot of times don't want to make more work for ourselves, right? So we're looking at it backwards, right? It shouldn't be, now 3 steps, right? We should be looking at it from a perspective of, hey, I don't want our customer to have 3 steps, so I'll gladly take those 3 steps.
Yeah.
All
Right?
really good points. Yeah, but sometimes it also leads to no steps on our part, right? Because if we can get it where they can get it themselves, then that takes that work away from us ultimately. When it's simple.
Absolutely.
No, that really good point. Yeah, and the culture and back to your point, Donna, what was interesting, I was in a meeting one time where they were having a discussion about improving this process and making it not take so long because they were getting so many complaints. And this VIP finally, after like 20 minutes, he goes, why are we talking about this? He said, every time I have this, he said, it's done. He said, we just talked about it longer than it takes for me to get it. And they all started to laugh. And they said, well, that's because you're a VIP. He goes, what? What does that mean? And they said, well, you have totally different targets. He says, I do? Never even knew. So sometimes we think our VIPs expect that. And then I know somebody else that started to show about executive overrides, and they self-policed. When they started to see that their executive overrides was taking resources away from meeting service levels, they started to decide, do I need to do this? Like, can we have better expectations or timeframes? So to your point, kind of helps Robert's point as well, right? We're in this culture of we expect to hit all these targets, and do we really understand the impact of that across the entire department? And so you said it starts with the leadership. It's also to change the culture too. And Robert, there's a guy, I don't know if he's around anymore, Joel Barker, about major paradigm shifts. And he made a comment one time that the best change agent is your outsider, because they're not stuck in that won't work here. We tried that before, because the culture piece isn't in their way. So I think what you brought up is really good.
Yeah, I mean, your presentation today. Go ahead, Robert. I'm sorry.
I think it's Angela.
Oh, this is Angela. So I think that it's interesting. Something that I have encountered, and it really resonates with that pyramid. Our experiences determine really kind of like our actions ultimately, right? And as I help own the ServiceNow platform, and what I found is we might have a grand idea, right? But I do not ever want to let my end users know where we're going, because I call it the Mr. Miyagi approach. I'm going to get them to start doing one action at a time.
Wax on,
And by
wax
the end
off.
of it, exactly, because once they get it down, and then finally when I give them a final product, they're actually doing what I want them to do. Because I think a lot of times when we talk about continuous improvement or making an improvement, we're like marathon from the couch. We're going to do this from the couch, right? We don't do the steps. We don't do the training. We don't coach, and we don't do all of that stuff. And so I've encountered this like resistance, because even though my improvement will ultimately get me where I want to go, I have to work. I have to work towards it. I have to do it. So it's almost like we have to have this cultural shift of making it, I don't know, feasible, accessible, doable. Like, I just think that sometimes these efforts are too big of an idea for everyone.
Yeah, so it's the simple stuff, but even to your point, it's understanding the journey to the extent of knowing the holistic aspects of it, so that you can take those steps to get there, right? Because if we don't know what the whole thing looks like, it's going to be really hard to get there. And then Keith, I knew you had something, but Robert, you did unmute. Did you have something to add as well?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Keith, go ahead.
Now, I was really just going to capitalize on what I heard when you guys were in the whole VIP conversation. As I listened to you, the term servant leadership just kept coming up in my brain, where these managers that are high on the good ones are actually rolling up their sleeves. They actually are serving the people that report to them more so than the other way around. So I'm a big fan of that. But while I have the floor, Don, I got to tell you, I hope I can make your presentation, because I'm pretty damn excited or intrigued by this concept of operationalizing your strategy, which I first learned about from David Cannon, and it might have been on one of these sessions. And I will just tell you guys that one simulation that's out there called DTXI, every 3 months, the leadership hits the rest of the organization with things that they never heard of, because the market has been so volatile and changed so much, and people have to adjust on the fly. And I think of that as operationalizing your strategy. So I hope I'm available to make that, because I think that is a challenge that these organizations are facing.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree.
And it's even more challenging because it's not one size fits all, right? You might
Yeah.
have a part of your organization where traditional IT service management works just fine. And then you have another part of your organization where it's all about agile and DevOps and lean. So it's not even, that makes it even all that much more complex.
All true. So I hope so let's make sure that I don't have anything else on the calendar for that day, Jeff, so I can be a part of this.
We'll record it, Keith. We'll record it.
I'll consult.
Yeah,
with you
but he
after
wants
the
to
meeting
have the
here,
floor
Keith.
too.
We'll straighten you out.
No, I'm just gonna listen.
So we definitely still have a few more minutes, as long as everybody's okay to stay. But I want to make sure Mark, Matt, Cody, I haven't heard any of you ask a question. I saw your comments in chat, Mark. So thanks for those. Do either of you have a question? We've got some service desk leadership in here, and some of the feedback I think should really resonate as far as some of the things I know that we're trying to do.
Well, I'm going to selfishly
questions?
ask, because I'm actually presenting at Service Management. Which one is coming up next?
Support World Live.
Support World. I keep getting them confused. One of my presentations is managing the flow of feedback.
I like it.
So I'd actually love to hear from anybody how else you capture feedback, especially some of this third door stuff. How do you capture it? Where do you funnel it to? I'd love to hear.
I just heard from somebody in class that they use a listserv. It's at a university, but they use a listserv. It's one of the ways that their customers get feedback. What else are people using?
So that's like the modern day
I think so.
suggestion box or whatever, right?
Yeah, and he said they had some community portals too that they monitor.
Yeah, I worked with an organization, Rae Ann, that actually did phone call recording at their service desk, and we'd go back and listen to those sometimes because of a certain issue that came up, and not always negative, sometimes positive too, for
Yeah.
kudos and that, but even just randomly, they would go select longer calls or certain things that they try and to pull feedback out from that perspective as well. And they found that to be
I
really
love that.
It wasn't just about trying to get the analysts or the service desk technicians to do what they're supposed to do from a process perspective, but it was actually trying to get feedback. And it was, I found that was really a nice practice that they were doing with that.
Excellent.
And effective. And somebody said the customer stat survey at the very beginning. Does anybody have that free form field that, like Donna had mentioned? Can they put comments?
We use the HDI survey.
Oh,
and
the
we-
5. Do you
Yeah.
add your 6th question? Isn't that free
Um,
form?
We do have a free form field for comments. right?
Okay.
So anything that, anybody that puts a comment in triggers the email out to all the managers and those.
Ah,
you know.
Excellent.
for every question, there's a free form field as well.
Yes.
Okay, nice. I like that it triggers that it goes out too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just think it has to go one more step, right? Like it goes to the leaders, but then how do we have those conversations and collaborate around
Right.
the people that are doing the jobs too? I think that's great.
Right. So what we do is, when we have great comments, those get sent to our division executive admin, and it ends up in the town hall presentations where we
Nice.
call out people.
I love it.
For negative things, then, all the managers have it, and whoever's area it is drills down into it, finds out what happens, reaches out to the customer, and we go through those steps as well.
Oh, so to that point, follow up with the customer sounds like an avenue as well, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. And I hear that from desktop managers a lot because they can't monitor a call. So sometimes they'll shadow, they'll walk with them, or they'll just call and say, hey, I know Keith came to your desk yesterday. I just want to talk about your experience. And just a conversation.
Yeah, to take things to the next level, Rand, just based on your presentation, a couple of thoughts that I was thinking about as you were going through. One is to almost be able to segment the third door types of feedback, where it's not just, hey, this worked or it didn't work, but I bypassed things to get what I needed. And it almost makes me think a little bit of intelligent disobedience as well. Maybe the agent allowed that to happen, and maybe that's okay, but we've got to make sure that those instances aren't just being lost. We've got to make sure that we're capturing when those things happen somehow, and that we have the ability to, parse those out and follow up on them. And your presentation really honed in on that for me. Is it's its own thing. It's not just good or bad or satisfied or not satisfied, but it's an exception.
I love that.
Part of 80-20, and maybe we need to look at it from more that standpoint than we typically do.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes we just get stuck. Stuck's the wrong word, but sometimes we just keep processes around because we've had them, and maybe the way we're doing it isn't, it's just not viable anymore. Or it's just not necessary anymore. That's what you made me think of, Jeff.
Yeah,
I like that intelligence disobedience.
Well, and the whole idea is that I think it should be okay to do that, but then when it happens, it can't just be swept under the rug.
Right.
Let's
note it and why.
Is somebody abusing the system on the customer side? Maybe they are. Maybe it's a performance management issue that needs to be addressed. But in most cases, it's probably that our process isn't fit for purpose for
it's a hurdle.
Situations. And we can go through that whole, is this an exception, or we're actually seeing more of this? Do we need to focus some improvement attention and even put this in our register potentially?
And it helps drive people to doing that. There's a quote by Dale Carnegie, people are committed to that which they help create. So if they can tell you, I bypassed this for this reason, I think it would be better if now they're part of the solution, right? And they can feel a little more commitment from that perspective.
Yeah, really good.
Well, and how do you help people understand too, that sometimes when they bypass the process, they end up making things worse for themselves? And so how do you kind of help people, how do you gently and kindly help people understand that?
I think it's usually
without
the big picture,
saying, if you would have followed the process, this could have been done sooner.
As much as I hate to bring it up because of how old it is, but if you guys go back to Computer World issue May of 2010, some of you may remember, this was they did an article where several companies planted IT people to live in business unit areas for 30 days. And the information that they brought back was just unbelievable.
I bet.
The companies, as I recall, one was Vanguard Investment Group, Southwest Airlines, Zappos Shoes. And look at the reputation even today of Zappos Shoes and Southwest Airlines. And what they found, they never could have found by sitting at their service desk. They never, and I think BRM, in the BRM curriculum today, they actually look at a lot of those different things when we kind of talk about trusted advisor, strategic partner. One of the ways to get there is how well do you really understand what that part of the business does?
Right. That's great. Yeah. And I do think, so what you're saying is that they have visibility and understanding of the end to end, then they're going to recognize results or make better decisions, use better judgment. Because too often we're just in this little siloed part. This is what I do, but I don't understand how it impacts everything else.
Another life-changing moment for me was when I was in the call center space, and you kind of talked about how supervisors can't absolutely monitor what every agent was doing. And there was a software package called Witness that integrated at the device driver level. So agents never knew when they were being recorded, but they knew that they were being recorded 5 times within a given 30-day period. Well, that was the answer to supervisors not having to monitor the people, because you know what's going to happen. If I'm standing over you and I'm monitoring, I know what kind of behavior you're going to exhibit. But what happens when we don't know?
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't really know what happened in that space, but as we think about AI and machine learning, I mean, how much is being picked up there that maybe we can take advantage of?
It's great. And then Cody put in there that he agrees about the call recording for investigating and getting perspectives on emotions. Yeah, and there are that's another thing with text analytics. They look for emotion words too, or the AI, right? It starts to look for emotion words that tie to emotion, whether it's good or bad. So there's an aspect of that too. And more than what you're going to get from tickets or submitted feedback. Good.
Yeah.
And I think too that if people think you're not going to do anything, they're not going to give you any information.
Yeah. Yeah.
He has 2 pages of notes. I love it. Thank you.
I mean, Rae Ann, your presentation was so far reaching. I mean, I was thinking value stream mapping. I was thinking, you know, the different approaches to continual improvement. I mean, it was just so far. You touched on so many things, you know, not to mention the whole customer experience and sentiment thing. It's just crazy.
Thanks, but it is, let's all roads do lead to experience, right? Because that's why you do value stream mapping, and that's why you put processes in place, and that's why you get feedback.
Yeah,
so I do love it too. Yeah, the journey mapping.
From my head was that also is
you
even mentioned it, right? Keep the whole provider consumer relationship piece that needs to go on through that.
Yeah. And I didn't directly approach it, say it, but I meant to, you know, like what I learned from Donna and driving stakeholder value, just the whole idea of touch points and interactions too. You know, you can't control the touch points or have visibility to it, but sometimes it is a hallway conversation or walking out to your parking lot. And so how do we capture those, you know, or what they're sharing with others?
It's funny. We've just been so profiled in IT that we're not these emotional people, right? We're these tech geeks. I saw a cartoon the other day, 4 different engineers get into a car and the car won't start. And each engineer has a different perspective. One of the engineers has an IT perspective, and his or her answer was, why don't we just get out of the car and get back in and see if it works?
That's funny.
We have clearly been profiled.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks again, everyone, for being here, watching the recording. And again, a reminder, our next meeting will be on May 10th with the fabulous Donna Knapp presenting. And we will look forward to that. And we'll see everyone next time.